Hello, everybody. I hope you're doing well. Just wanted to give a shout out today, especially to the great Michigan Church of God ministerial team and all the good people of the Church of God here in Michigan, but also to a lot of friends scattered all over the country and across the world. So, God bless you all and Merry Christmas to you. And so this has been the first video blog I've done in a while. Uh, as you know, many of you will know, regrettably I lost my mother before Thanksgiving in early November, I guess it is. It's been a blur, and that kind of knocked the wind out of my sails. And but we're regrouping, and life must go on. And I do appreciate so many gracious and kind words of support and staying in touch with me. You've been dear friends, and I do thank you, and I don't take that for granted. But as I said, life goes on. I've given the advice over the years to so many others. It's amazing when you are the pastor and you're giving advice, and when you're the person and you're having to live by your advice, but it's still true. And I would often ask them when they're dealing with the loss of a loved one, I'd ask them, are you right-handed or left-handed? And they'd tell me. And if they were, like in my case, if they were left-handed, I would tell them, well, losing a loved one is like getting your left arm ripped off in a terrible accident. It's painful and it's permanent, but you can learn how to write with your right hand. And so that's what I'm doing. I'm learning how to write and do life right-handed. And so anyway, but enough of all that. But again, thank you so much, and warmest greetings and seasons greetings in particular to all of you. But I want us to go ahead and begin to look at next year, and with what I call a year end. Let me see exactly what I called it. Yeah, year end reflection. And here's the goal, and this will be all in your notes in the blog I'll send out. You look down below the video. If you go on pastorkemp.com, it may not be all on the YouTube channel, but it will be if you'll go to the pastorkemp.com link and find it. I have all these notes for you. But here's my goal. This is something that I did. It's not original with me, and I don't remember who encouraged me to do this, but it has become for decades now a regular part of my life. And that is the last week of my life, of each year. God only knows when my last week of my life is going to be, but the last week of the year, things kind of settle down. Your schedule, hopefully, you'll have some free time. And I want you to spend that time, and I've worded it specifically. Take the last week of this year and spend time reflecting and planning on what you can do to increase the odds that 2026 will be better for you in your church than it was this year. And I want you to notice I said to increase the odds. And I'll talk more about this at the end. But, we can know God's will for our life. And we read the Bible, and we read the Bible a lot of times like it happened in about, 5 or 10 years. But it was like 5 or 10,000 years. And, Moses, I was thinking about Abraham. Abraham left Ur, and he was, in the term of their day, he was, an older middle-aged guy, and he, a decade or so, and he hears from God, you're going to be a great nation. Another decade or so, and finally he has a child. There's a whole lot of stuff goes on in between there. And so each day, even if you know specifically God's call in your life and God's plan for your life, there's a lot of white noise. There's a lot of static. There's a lot of empty space. There's a lot that you have to go each day, each week, oftentimes a few years, without really being clear on the specificity, the specificness of what God's plan. So you make your best bet. You do it prayerfully. I'm not trying to be irreverent here, but you do it prayerfully, and you do it with fear and trembling before God, but you put yourself out there and you make decisions, the wisest decision based on the knowledge you've got. You make your best bet. And so that's what I want you to do at the end of this year. Spend time reflecting on what you did good, bad, and ugly. But each new year, is a vote for the future. It's not a vote for the past. And so I want you to vote for the future. And what can I do in my personal life, for my family, and speaking specifically to ministers, but this is applicable to anyone in your area or your sphere of influence. What is the best thing I can do? What is the best bet I can make on a better future for those that I serve? And so I've got basically two things, three things. First of all, I want you to be clear on the mission. If you're going to be making plans, it's good to know what your mission is. And before we get too deep into weeds here, you can come up with all kinds of fancy packaging, wordsmithing, and marketing and all that. And I'm not against it. You can couch it any way you want, but pretty much if this is not your mission, you're in the wrong business as far as a pastor. But your mission, I want you to think about your mission for your family. And I guess I'm speaking specifically to men here, and it may be a little different for you lady folk, but I'm just going to, majority of us are going to be men and fellas. The mission for your family, for you, is to be a provider and a protector and leave an inheritance to your children's children. That's what the Bible says. Proverbs 13 and 22. A good man leaves an inheritance to his children's children. And so I'll mention the word endowment in a little bit. Not just living for the day, not just saving for your future, but endowing the future of your family so that they can follow God's will and plan for their lives. Just like Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, on it goes. There was an endowment that passed on from son to sons. God said, this is how I want Aaron and his sons, and that meant a perpetual blessing. This is how I want them to bless my people. And so the mission for you, for your family, is what can I do to increase the chances that I'll be a good provider, a good protector, and that I will leave an endowment to my children's children. The mission for your church, again, let's don't get in deep weeds. We can do all that fancy wordsmithing, and there's nothing wrong with that. But at the end of the day, the mission for your church is to find the lost and disciple the found. Find the lost and disciple the found. Help them to grow into Christian maturity. It's okay for the little lamb to run away and get lost, but eventually you want that lamb to grow up and not do that again, because there's going to be another lamb. And so God's got a lot of lost lamb, a lot of lost sheep out there. It's our job to find them, but help them to mature where they are comfortable staying in the presence of God. So that's the first thing. Be clear on the mission. The second thing is you're this last week or these last few days of the year, when you sit down and get your pencil out or your keyboard out or whatever you do, and you begin to reflect, I want you to be clear on how you're going to allocate the resources that God has put into your care. Senior leaders, they allocate resources and they allocate time. And that's what we're going to really spend the rest of the time. And there's a lot in your notes, but on a personal level, be clear on how you're going to allocate the resources God has put in your care. And He's put your family in your care, and He's put your life as one of the assets and the earning power you have. So this may be a little counterintuitive. You may be expecting a spiritual answer. This is spiritual, but I want you to review your insurance, your life insurance. Do you know that if you're going to, especially if you're going to provide and protect for them, you have no assurance that you're going to finish this year, more or less next year, more or less the next 10, 20, 30, 40 years. You have no assurance. But it's your job. You took a wife. You together, God gave you children, and hopefully they're going to give you children. And it's your job to leave an inheritance to your children's children. And so to do that, you've got to leave an estate. And you can, for $30 to $50, a 40-year-old man for $30, $35 can create a 30-year guarantee, a 30-year window of $1 million. I kind of ran this lesson by one of the pastors. I had a lunch with him a few days ago, and I ran this lesson by him, and I shared with him, and I don't want to get too deep in the weeds here, but the 6% rule. And just doing all the math, he would need about $75,000 a year. That's not unrealistic in this culture and in the place where his cost of living is, he would need about $75,000, or his wife and children would need that to live, and then to create an endowment. And so I share with him the 6% rule. And you say, assuming he got no Social Security or any other income but just 75,000, then you divide that by 6%, and that equals uh, uh, $1,250,000. So for about $45 to $55 per month, he can make sure that his wife has enough to take care of herself. It makes 6%. It would grow with inflation, and then an additional 2% that would be rolled back into it to endow it. It would pass on to the children, to their children's children. It would continue to grow on and on until Jesus comes. And so I've got this in your notes, and so don't get too much into it. But review your life insurance and see if you've got enough to take care of your family and to leave an endowment. And then review your spending plan, both for yourself and for your church. And we call that a budget, but really it's a spending plan. And so let's just cut to the chase. And so again, I don't want to spend a lot of time here, but be honest. Numbers indicate things. And so here's your shortcut. Are you more in debt now than you were this time last year? If you are, then you haven't been allocating your resources well. And so I want you to take some time, get your pencil out, get your eraser out, talk to your wife, your husband, reflect, figure out. You got to either cut back on your spending, or you got to figure out a wise way without taking away from your primary calling, but you got to figure out a way to bring in more income. And so if you are more in debt now than you were this time last year, that is a sinkhole, and it will eventually, it'll tie your hands if it hasn't already, and suck the literal life out of you. So review your spending plan, not only for yourself, but for your church. Does your church have more debt, or does your church have more money in the account now than it did last year, or less? If it has less, then you're on a downward slide. There may be good reasons why, but you've got to figure out, I've got to, in 2026, I've got to either cut the expense of the church, or I've got to bring in more money. I've got to do some fundraising. I've got to teach the people about tithing and giving. But there's only 10% is 10%, and to browbeat your people and ask them to keep giving more and more and more. They have a life. They're wanting to be good stewards of their life too. So you may have to get creative. There's nothing wrong. You're a nonprofit organization. You can ask people to make donations. There's fundraising. And there's nothing wrong with that. You are being a good senior leader to take care of your church. And just as a reminder, you are, whether you have the legal title or not, an ordained bishop, but you are the bishop. You're the ordained authority at that church for the entire Church of God. The General Assembly is counting on you to handle the name and the resources of the Church of God with integrity and wisdom, and leverage it to fulfill the mission of finding the lost and discipling the found. And so you are a senior leader. You are a pastor, but you are also a CEO. And so a good CEO wisely allocates the resources that are in his or her hand. Okay? And then so you review your life insurance, you review your spending plan, and then you review your endowment savings. Okay, this is a shortcut here. Do you have more long-term savings now than you did last year? And of course, if you're normal, if you're average, of course, Michigan Church of God ministers are all above average. But in this area, if you are average, you don't. If you do, it's not near enough. Most people are woefully underfunded just to retire, more or less leaving an endowment. And so I want you to sacrifice, find a way. You say, well, I don't have it. Yeah, you do. If it's start with $1, start with $5, start with $10. Find a way to save every day. Save $1 a day. That's $7 a week. That's $28, $35 a month. It adds up. If you just figure out how can I save $1 a day. And I put a link in here to the benefits board in the Church of God. And if you'll start this next year, there's so many benefits to being a part of the Church of God 403B plan. This is same like in a secular for-profit, it's 401k. Same thing, just a little different wrinkle. It's designed for nonprofit. And the Church of God has a wonderful, you have three wonderful stock mutual funds, large cap, small cap, and international. I would recommend for almost all of you that they give a good, right now currently it's 4%, which is good, but that's going to barely keep up with inflation. You're going to save, and you're going to be losing ground over the long haul. And so I'm not a financial advisor, and so you got to take all this with a grain of salt. But I do know that you need to start saving. And here's another thing. I believe it's the first 500. Again, you'll have to read it there. It's been many years since I joined, but the first 500 they'll match. And so next year, if you invested in your endowment for your children's children, your wife's retirement to take care of her, and then to leave and let her, if she outlives you, which is most likely, or either one of you, then you can also leave an endowment to your children and to their children's children. If you put $50 a month, that's $600 a year. They'll match the first 10 months of that, and you'll have $1,100, or no, 1,000 and 1,000, and then another 120, $1,120 next year. You'll be already ahead, and that'll just keep compounding, to keep growing. And so I put the link in there, but you must start saving now, or if you're already saving, you must start saving more. Figure out how to do it. You're not only retiring, planning on your retirement, you are raising an endowment so that God's call on your family's life can be financed. And then the third thing, then I again talk to you about the 6% rule, so you'll know how much. Have a good solid estimate of how much you take, how much you need, and divide it by 6%, and that will provide for you, keep you up with inflation, and because you can very realistic. If you have your money in the stock market, you can very realistically average over your lifetime 8%. And so you take the 6% each year, keeps your endowment, your retirement growing, and the other 2% you reinvest back into the endowment, and over decades and decades and decades, you'll always keep up with inflation on average, and your endowment will grow. So I've got a book in there. It's called Simple Wealth, Inevitable Wealth by Nick Murray. I don't think it's in print now, but you can get the copies on Amazon.com. Go to their used section, and you can buy a good used copy for just a few dollars. It's kind of my finance Bible. Very simple, very easy to read. That'll be in your notes. And so let's review. This is your end of the year review. Been going 17 minutes. I got to hurry. 18 minutes now. Be clear on the mission. Be clear on how you're going to allocate the resources God's put in your care, and then create your 2026 calendar. This is where you create the future. And you'll say, well, Bishop, I can't create the future. Only God can do that. But you can make a bet on the future. Remember what I told you. What can you do to increase the odds that you and your family and your church, are the people that are under your care in whatever area, that even your company, that you may be working for a company, but you want it to flourish because it's taking care of you and so many others. And so what can you do to increase the odds that next year will be a better year? And so, first of all, plan your non-negotiables for your family. Get 12 months. Get you a calendar. You can do it on your computer, or you can literally get you a paper copy, a day timer kind of thing. There's all kinds of good products out there, and you go ahead and block all of your personal time. Get your vacations locked in. So you and your wife, your husband, sit down, get your vacation. If you're gonna be wise and have a date night at least 2 or 3 a month, but preferably one a week. Go ahead and put them down. That this is what we're going to do. I'm going to invest in my relationship with my spouse. If you got kids, things. If you got, just plan all your personal time. Get it on there, because remember this: everybody's fighting for you, your time, but nobody's fighting for you. You got to fight for you. You got to carve out time for you and your family. You got to be a wise allocator of your time. And that is a non-negotiable. And you can, with integrity, tell people, I'm sorry, I'd love to, but I have an appointment there. I've already committed myself for that day, for that evening. I'm so sorry, but I won't be able to do that. And there will be rare times when you will, maybe for a death or something like that, but it'll be very rare. You've got to have non-negotiables. And so uh, plan your family calendar and then plan your church calendar to reflect your mission. Get it out. I don't mean to be scolding or anything like that, but it's amazing to me that guys will start the year, they have no idea when Easter is. They have no idea. They'll plan a sermon series and not even think about it, about when Easter comes in. They could leverage that. They could leverage other special days, other special events. Get your, if you have revivals or special services, if you want to have I don't want to get too deep in the weeds because you've got to place the bets that will work at your church. But get your church calendar planned out. I've included at the end of the blog, I've included the major state events for you so that I won't be sending you an email and completely disrupt your plans. You've got a life. I don't expect you to sit around and wait on me and plan your schedule according to what I might do. And so I've given them all out, and I would like for you need on the first Sunday of the year, you can weave the state events in with yours. I hope you will. You're part of the team. Weave the state events in with yours, but give your people at the first of the year, give them the annual calendar with the major events. Work it into your first sermon. Cast vision. Let them know this is my best bet that you're gonna have a better year this year, and here's why. This is what we're going to do. This is we need this much money. We need this many volunteers for these events, and I want you to plan your schedule. They've got a life, so they can plan their vacations and their special things. And so plan your calendar. All right, final advice. Great word. And in conclusion, but I want to just read it to you. This is my final advice. There is no silver bullet. Let me just stop right there. We're always looking for that. If I go to just one more church growth conference, read one more church growth book, and you can always get good ideas, but if you don't have an idea going in, you have nothing to hang them on. Because I pastored 5 different churches over my career as a minister. Over 30-something years, I pastored 5 churches. One of those I pastored 20 years. But I pastored Saluda. It was my first church, a church in New Ellington, near Augusta, Georgia. Then I pastored in Simpsonville, which is kind of in the upper part of the state. Then I pastored Easley, which is further up. And then up down near Charlotte, I pastored Fort Mill. 5 different churches. And every one of them were different. There are some principles that work everywhere. People are people. But plans and programs, I've seen them come and I've seen them go. And you've got to have an idea of what God wants you to do, the way you're wired. You are the secret sauce where you're at. Not what some guy's doing in some big city somewhere else or even in a small city somewhere. You get ideas from other people. But there's not a silver bullet. Let me get back. There is no one idea, program, or plan that is guaranteed to work. That doesn't mean you don't attend conferences and read and grow, but there's no guarantee that any of them will work. And if they do work, they probably won't work where you minister. What worked last year for you will probably not work next year, but it might if you make adjustments. Bottom line, you're not planning, you're betting. I know that sounds so unspiritual, but you're just making, unless God comes down and writes it on the wall, you know in general what God's called you to do, but just like God with Abraham, look at the sky, count the stars. There's no way he could count the stars. He was just giving him a rule of thumb. You're going to have a lot, your children's children are going to have, your endowment is a lot of children. But he had no idea how many. He just made his best bet. He made a gamble, a bet on Ishmael, and it didn't work out good. But God made it work together for his good. And so you're going to make your best bet. And so bottom line, you're not planning, you're betting. So with absolute confidence in the unchangeable character of God as your backstop, You're trying to find and disciple broken, unpredictable, and sinful people while facing an uncertain future. Okay? There's no guarantees. So make a bet. The wisest bet you can, based on the research and prayer from your time of reflection, and then trust God for the outcome. Either He's God or He's not. Either He's called you or He didn't. How will you know? You take the cards that have been dealt with you without complaining, without whining, and you play the best hand you can and leave the rest up to God. Brothers, sisters, that's how you face a new year. So spend the last few days of the year, get by yourself, and do a little year-end reflecting. I'll have the outline. It'll be in the notes of the blog. Go to pastorkemp.com and find Yearend Reflection, and you can get these notes. Love you. Let's have a great year, and pray that you have a great Christmas.